Good afternoon, Bina.
Good afternoon, Julie. How are you?
Fantastic. Fantastic. It's Friday. Always fantastic. Although, yeah, the rain's not making me very cheery. So, yeah. How about you?
Not raining yet, but see, I'm cold already because it is. Yesterday was really horrible, and today it's going to rain any minute here. So, but I think we've had a little bit of break from our summer now, and I reckon hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll get some Indian summer like we normally do in September. So, big fingers crossed for that.
We've moved from orange to black. What's going on?
I know, and we both actually just. It's telepathy. Telepathy, my dear.
Anyway, let's get started. Good afternoon, everybody. It's the 28th of August. It's HR Bullets with Plain Talking HR, the lovely Bina, and Julie Grimes from Jaguar White Recruitment. What are our hot topics for today, Bina?
Well, the hot topics, obviously, we've been talking a lot about furloughing and flexible furlough and all that. And although that keeps going on till end of October, I think we're getting to the point where in the media there's a lot about employees returning to work or not returning to work, but mainly all the businesses, organizations have started looking at how they start operating and how they get their people back at work, and there are kind of this kind of green shoots of business and moving forward and being more positive. So I think there's a lot to talk about with will the people come back to work or not, or will they carry on working from home? What facilities, what arrangements, what flexibility are you going to give or have arrangements of? But not only that, we're going to be talking about people who don't really want to come back to work. What about them? What do you do with that? But also anyone who's working from home, has the organization, the company got their well-being in place or not?
Absolutely.
Because that's coming up so much now. So there's a number of those issues that I really want to talk about. Quarantine as well, because we've still got the quarantine on a number of countries where if you come back from holiday from there, you would be quarantined. We're also talking about holidays. I think I touched on holidays just literally briefly because we are still, in the midst of people wanting to take holidays now. And I think the one other thing that I think we'll talk about is Brexit. That's it.
3 months to go. That's right. We should definitely touch on that. It seems early, but 3 months are going to fly by, aren't they? So, yeah.
Well, because it will be September next week. And so then, realistically, by the time you really do something about it, given that employers are now gearing up to start really full steam, as it were, with the businesses, so that is important that they think about that.
Perfect.
And then you talk about recruitment.
Yeah, I've got some interesting facts about recruitment, people going back to work or not, and a bit about discrimination, but big on people that are made redundant and their CVs. That's the big thing today for me as well. So, okay.
Okay, so I'll start off. Working from home, I think that's the one thing. I mean, as I said, we're not talking about furloughs or flexible furlough because we've done all that. But there are obviously, just to touch on it, that people who are on furlough, then the organizations will be paying their NI and pension contribution this month.
Yeah.
Next month, not only those two factors, but there will also be 10% being contributed by the employer, and then 20% towards the furlough pay in October, and that will finish. There was people were saying, well, just maybe the government will extend it even beyond end of October. I don't see it, and not many people, because they would have said something by now if that was the case. Because if you go back to March, April, May, June time, the government was a couple of months ahead of what was going to happen, and they were announcing different changes. So that's it. I think they spent a lot of money, as it were, and
I think it's more hope. I think it's more hoping, is it, rather than it going to happen. A lot of people, I was reading on the news, the government need to be extending it. But I think you're right.
There's not much money left. Yeah, so I think that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
That it stops end of October, and that means that businesses are still really thinking about, if they haven't thought about restructure in the fullest sense,
I know.
as to what's going to happen on 1st of November, what kind of business are they going to have, as far as obviously the business is concerned, the products, services, whatever they do, but the people, what does it look like, and do they need to change something even between now and end of October, if they haven't, or is it going to be something on an ongoing basis and carry on beyond October to the end of the year and into New Year? Because it may be that they kind of work with what they've got and they think, well, we can manage, or depending whether they want to recruit or go even further down. So I think that's going to be still quite it's going to be very fluid on that basis.
I think,
but sorry.
I was just going to say, I think from an employer's point of view as well, it is, employers are in a market to be able to make good decisions, but they just need to be careful, like you said, to look after their staff, because employees, in what I've been reading lately, employees are deciding whether they actually want to go back to work because of health reasons, or have they taken this time to think about, actually, I want to do something different in terms of changing direction. So I think employers do need to be mindful of that, even though they're kind of in control. They need to be careful to look after the staff that they really want to keep. And
exactly. And to be honest, anybody who's still working from home and they might have elected to carry on doing that, because employers are asking their employees to say, what would you like to do? If it's possible, would you want to stay at home, or do you want to come back to work, or do 50-50 or whatever? But that means that anybody who, everybody was thinking about working from home as a short-term measure, but now it looks like it could be longer or almost permanent for some people. And that is a real big change in how employers have to think about what their employees actually, their well-being. So first of all, their health and safety, their physical actual working space at home, is that, because it's covered under working from home, and safety and well-being, their employees. So they need to make sure that that is all kind of taken care of. But then there's the mental health issue as well, because some people, even though you see they're caught in between the two, aren't they? They don't want to go into work because they're frightened and nervous of traveling and being with crowds and spaces that they don't have any control over. At least at home they've got control, but then at the same time, being at home all the time, they might not be able to cope that well, because some people just don't. They need people around them. They need the work environment as such. So
I think that's where, on top of that, communication comes in, checking in, weekly calls, weekly conference calls, daily stand-ups, if that's what you do as a business with a sales team. So communication.
And also there's a lot of people don't have all the facilities at home. They might not have a big printer or whatever they might need, or equipment that they need for their work, which you automatically take it for granted when you're at work. But at home, not everybody has the same kind of equipment that they need for working. So there's a whole lot of stuff that it is quite, at the moment, fluid. It's so unpredicted, and so I think there's a lot needs to be seen to. Quarantine, I think, redundancy, the other thing that I was going to just say, that is, the redundancies are still happening, and they will carry on happening for September, October, and so there are people who just don't think about it, but it's not nice to be told that we don't need you. that is, where it was happening on a fairly low level, now is just so prevalent. That is almost like the one thing that's happening in almost every business you think about. And so there are a whole lot of people out there who've been made redundant. So in a way, some people are taking it as an option, as an opportunity to really think about their lives. And most people do when they get made redundant. I've done that.
Yeah.
A lot of people have done that. When you got made redundant, what do you do? And so, you really take stock of your life and what you would really want to do, what you like to do, what you're good at. And quite often you change your direction totally. But that's just, so that's a whole lot of stuff happening like that with your employees or ex-employees. And so that's to be kind of something to think about. But that also means that you as an employer, if you're thinking about recruiting even one position, you've got so many people out there that you can choose from. There is a vast pool of talented, experienced, ready-made people waiting for you, and you would get somebody much, much better than what you're going to be offering as a job, because people would, they're there wanting to go back to work. So that's that. And quarantine we talked about. So yeah, be mindful of where you're traveling to and when you come back, what you need to do. And some people obviously have been in the news, as you know, last week, where they got caught, that suddenly the government, announced that certain countries were out of bound. And so when you come back, you're going to be in quarantine. But some even couldn't travel back in, as you know, from France and all sorts of places. So the arrangements as to what's going to happen to you, if that happens to you or has happened, has the employer sorted it as to, whether you're going to get paid full pay or you're going to not get any pay, and there is a whole gamut of this stuff on the Gov.uk website on the circumstances as to whether you get payment or not. So it's always best to get this discussed and agreed with your employer as to what you're going to do in those circumstances. Yeah.
Ideally prior to going.
Yeah, but if you got caught and say where you're say you were in France and it suddenly happened,
Absolutely,
you're still out there, and then suddenly think, what happens to me when I come back? And so realistically, you should have been talking to your employer, straight away and say, look, I'm still here. I won't be back until, I was hoping to be back on Monday, and now I've got to be quarantined. So, how does it work? What are we going to do? It's not too bad if you're already working from home, so you can carry on working from home. It just means, but if that's not the case, then you've got an issue.
I think you just got to act responsibly, haven't you? Communicate, and I think between you and your employer, hopefully you'll come to an agreement that suits both.
And holidays, I'll just touch on it, that obviously we've got the bank holiday coming, but also there are a number of people who haven't really used up their holiday for this year, and it's again, it's a conversation to be had between the employer and the employee to make sure that you've taken reasonable number of days off this year by the end of the year, so that when you come back into next year, when you get into that, you're not taking across a whole year's allowance, because that's not going to do anybody any good, not the employer or the employee, because if you've got so many days accrued and you're able to take that across now, what do you do? Because instead of 4 or 5 weeks, you're going to be off for 10 weeks, and given that everybody wants to start really get going with the businesses, that's not going to be really very popular.
Helpful to the business either. No, definitely not. Yeah.
And the last thing I will talk about is Brexit, and we talked about it just very briefly, but it is really important to double check the status of all your employees And, whether they are UK, they've got UK passports, British passports, or they are here on some kind of work permit or status, which means that they really need to be sure that come 1st of January, they are able to carry on with your company. We will touch on in detail on Brexit, I think probably by the end of September, and really dedicate one kind of session on that. But at the moment, I think it's just to flag it up, to say, look, start thinking about it and just make sure that do an audit, a real thorough audit, because number of businesses, especially SMEs, quite often don't even have any records, and that they don't even have any passports or any records to say that they know definitely 100% that their employees are all okay to live and work in the UK, and they've got the right status.
And if you are one of those employers, then I would speak to us, Bina, to help you get a process in place, because it's the right thing to do. Even more so now. It's, obviously you need it anyway, but you're the lady, aren't you, Bina, to get all that
I am. Well, it's all on the government website, and you go onto UK border control and immigration and all that. But of course, we are here as I do help my clients to work through the process and how we need to do that. That's it.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for that. As helpful as always. We'll also touch on more next week and keep up to date. But from a recruitment point of view, good news on the street is that it's going to be up 25% in the next couple of months. It is word on the street, obviously. The redundancies are still happening. I've spoken to so many people this week. They've been in jobs for 10 and 12 years. It's just like you said, it's fluid, loads and loads of movement. Let's think positive. It is going to be on the up. It's probably going to be temps first, then perm, but who knows? Temp to perm's the good one in between. So let's all keep positive. But in terms of people going back to the office as well and maybe looking for other jobs, as I said, employers need to be careful that there are a lot of movement out there. People are taking that opportunity to change. And I think one of the campaigns for employers out there, which you probably know, is that there's a big campaign about offering lunch vouchers and money for people to come back to work.
Benefits, yeah.
So there's an extra thing. I think there's a campaign on there at the moment. So I think if you're not doing that as an employer, you could think about that to attract people back into the office. It's a small thing, but small things really make a difference.
Yeah, it is all practical things that stopping somebody to come into work, and also it's something meaningful on a daily basis, that people, it's tangible and it's meaningful, relevant, that will actually make life easy. And as you said, lunch vouchers, it may just be that by just giving a little bit of that free lunch, it just means that people don't have to think about where are they going to get their food from and what they're going to do with it, and that's expense and so on. Because don't forget, the one thing that's happened is that people's psyche has been changed about the way they used to go to work prior to lockdown to the way we are now moving forward. Everybody's mindset has been changed. Psyche has been changed about being with, traveling to work, being at work, in spaces where there's lots of people, where they don't have control over, whether they are standing around them, are they okay? Are they not okay? Are they safe? And so on and so forth. So this is where businesses have to be, HR businesses, business owners have to be really, really mindful, have to really think about their employees as to how can they make their lives easy? How can they actually bring them back to work, attract them, make it attractive, but also make it safe?
And I think the big thing is the well-being and how you look after the staff, without a doubt. I'm, as you know, I'm a judge and sponsor on the Best Businesswoman Awards, and I'm sponsoring Best Boss this year.
I know. Yeah.
I've just been judging, hours this week, the Best Boss. And by far, the people that will stay in jobs, and this is a known fact, they stay in jobs because of the people and the way they're treated and looked after. People don't leave just because of money. A big percentage is because of the way they're treated. So
mostly it is, as you know, the saying goes, that people leave the manager. You know, when they're leaving a job, it's normally that they're leaving the manager.
Right.
And the manager is like a generic term, but it's, as you said rightly, how they've been treated and how they're being treated and what the environment is like, what the company culture is like. But that's another story.
It is.
Another topic.
And one thing I was going to touch on is discrimination as well, because that's quite hot in the press at the moment. So it is becoming quite prevalent in the press, and it's funny because people think it's age discrimination that is the biggest thing for the older generation, and it actually isn't. It's more, the number one percentage is around the 18 to 24-year-olds. They feel they're just being discriminated. So that's one to look out for, employers, and we'll talk more about that, bringing people into work at that age group next week, won't we? With the
we'll do that. We'll spend a lot more time on it.
So so it's the age, and then I think in second and third place is more about gender and appearance. So I think with discrimination, you have to be really careful, even more so now. So you can always obviously check with Bina on that, the discriminations and how to get over that as well. The good thing is 73% of employees feel that they haven't been discriminated. So it's quite high, but it's something to be thinking about on the unconscious bias side anyway. And one thing I know we've spoken on this, but after this week and speaking to so many candidates trying to register and look for work, my biggest tip I want to end with is your CV. We talk about it a lot, but this week I was helping a lady who's applied for a job directly for a position, and the title of what she's applied for is not even on her CV. I know she can do the job, she's amazing, but it's all about keywords in your CV. I cannot stress this enough. And also, just to give some facts and real examples, is the last 3 positions I have recruited for, you advertise as normal, I'm on all the job boards, etc. But I've actually had to go and search for these people. So it's not all about people applying. That's obviously still a traditional way, but it's about recruiters and companies searching now, and it's about keywords. So you have to have the keywords of the job you're applying for, that you're experienced for, all through your CV. And maybe I'll do a separate thing on that in the next sort of couple of weeks as well to help people.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it's on recruitment, on CVs, it is, as I always say, make your life easier and make the recruiter's life easier, because you're helping them to help you, and by you as as a candidate, you have to help the recruiter to help you to make, find a job. And the way to do that is, realistically, as you said, all the things, make sure that you put everything there that actually your CV stands out. And it resonates, because they're picking up the words, they're picking up the language, they're measuring against the job description and the characteristics and the culture of the company and what they're looking for. So if you've done your job correctly, then you're helping the recruiter for the recruiter to pick you. Because the CV is doing that job for you.
And not just the recruiter, but the company's direct.
The manager, of course.
It's all the same, really. And another piece of advice I gave, and I know I can talk for all of the good recruiters out there, is that if you've applied for a position you've not heard, pick up the phone, follow it up. You don't have to be desperate. You're just making sure you're forefront of people's mind, you're interested, you're keen, because there are hundreds of people applying for jobs. So I would always, if someone made that effort to call or send another email, I would always take focus if I'm going through 300 candidates. So that would be a positive tip.
I think one of the sessions that we should do is probably on recruitment and how to get yourself out there and all the different steps. Because that is going to start happening more and more now. As people get made redundant, people change their mind to go back to work, and there's so many out there, but a lot of them have no clue as to what to do. And exactly. So maybe we should do a session just on that.
So for employers that are making redundancies, you can pass on tips, and for candidates who are job seeking at the moment, you'll be able to take some tips. So watch this space, because we will be doing that, I think, over the next couple of weeks.
A few weeks, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bina. Lovely to see you today. Hope that's been useful to everybody, and we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, Bina.
And bank holiday weekend.
Yeah,
thank you.
Take care. Have a great bank holiday. Bye.